And
Yep. No
we
problem.
won't take up a lot of your time because you're a very busy woman since you have 88 open line RC customer points and you have 227 personal customer points. So
Yeah.
not only are you in open line production, but you've got a lot of personal customer point production. So you're kind of doing two things well in ACN, which is building a team of people and growing your team, and then also gathering personal customers. So we'll kind of focus a little bit on both. Let's
Okay.
start with the customer topic. And I think for people that are watching this maybe on YouTube that have never met you before, it'd be good to have maybe a couple sentences on just your background outside of ACN.
Okay. Outside of ACN, I used to be in disability management. I enjoyed what I did. It's disability management insurance. I got to help people basically return to work or have a better quality of life. So that was really good for me. I'm also the mother to an amazing, currently 7-year-old son. And yeah, that's pretty much wraps me up. But I'm the type of person who believes it's important to look at multiple streams of income and not to depend on one source of income. And I wanted to spend more time with my son. So for me, that's why I started ACN.
Cool. So getting into customer acquisition, I think the everybody's answer has been different with this question. But where do you find, thinking of your 227 personal customer points, most of your customers are coming from? And it could be maybe mostly warm market, cold market, social media, referrals. Is there maybe a niche group or in group of individuals that you have a lot of influence with? What do you
Yeah.
feel that answer is for you?
I tend to deal a lot with all of the above. I just keep everything open. I network a lot with a lot of different people. So I've been lucky to get quite a few referrals from my networking side of things, just because people do business with those people that they love and that they like, right? So because people love me, like me, know me, they feel comfortable referring people to me. Um, Outside of that, it would be people that I know, I talk to, ask them to do me a huge favor and become my customer, give my services a try. So that's been good as well. Other than that, I deal with a lot of people who come into town that are newcomers to Canada. So that helps as well. Um, Again, most of it I would say has probably been people that I've helped who have now referred me to help other people that they know.
So I want to focus even more in on your approach with these different groups because I think that's going to be helpful for people. So we'll start with warm. We'll talk about acquaintances. One I'd like for you to focus on is one that's unique to you so far. I've heard is newcomers to Canada. I think that'd be really helpful. So let's
Yeah.
start with warm market people. How would you start an approach with somebody that you want to be your customer that you've known for a long time?
Well, first I ask them always about the business first. So first I ask them if they keep their options open for making extra income. Some of those people are like, no, which is fine. And so with them, I ask them immediately for the favor. I say, okay, so you're not open to making some extra income. That's cool. But you know what? I want to know if you're open to saving some money on the bills that you have to pay every day, anyways. Usually they're like, yeah, of course. Tell me how. So when they ask me to tell them how, I'm like, okay, great. I'm just going to show you some information. Let me look at your bills and I'll see how I can help you out. If their bill ends up being something that I can't meet or beat, then I let them know, you know what, you have the best rate out there. Be happy, stay with what you got. If I can help them, then I ask them to do me a huge favor and become my customer and support me in my business.
That's awesome. Let's shift gears to acquaintances, maybe people that coworkers not as warm of a relationship with. They know you, but how would you start that conversation off?
Yeah, usually for acquaintances, again, I still ask about the business side of things first. And, again, if they're not interested at all in hearing about any of that stuff, then I just kind of say, oh, okay, that's cool. And I'll just kind of ask them how their life's been going, what they've been up to lately. And then because I've asked them about them, they always ask me about myself. And so I let them know what I've been up to lately, right? And I say, what's really cool is that, especially in our market, I've been helping a ton of people with their energy bills. Would you mind if I take a look at your energy bill? Let me see if I can save you some money because it's been insane in our market right now. So just educating them on what our market's like helps a lot. So most of the clients that I've gotten over the last 30 days have been energy, um, and fluent, funny enough. But yeah, energy and fluent.
And newcomers to Canada. So I think this is going to be helpful to a lot of people in how to approach and maybe even the mindset of how to approach a newcomer to Canada. How does that conversation start?
Yeah. So for newcomers, it's more about helping them because they're already spending so much money to come to Canada. So everything's very like they don't really understand what half of the bills that we have to pay in Canada are because a lot of newcomers don't necessarily have to pay those bills in the countries that they're from, right? So even explaining to them, oh, here are some of the bills you have to pay. Let's see if you can get most of the things included in your rent or whatever place you're going to be living at. See if you can get as much as possible included in that. But for anything that's not included, let me help you. So I've basically kind of marketed myself recently as like an essential services consultant. So I market myself as an expert in that field. And then they trust me and I show them the different rates. I let them know about the different providers that are out there. And I'll actually let them know kind of what the other providers are charging right now.
So I think trust is an important word that you mentioned.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how to build trust and maybe just some practical examples and go a little bit deeper in on that when you're dealing with newcomers to Canada? They're obviously, you don't have a long-standing relationship with them,
No.
and they're in a vulnerable position. So there's a lot of elements there that could go wrong. How do you make
Yeah.
sure it goes right?
Yeah. I think for newcomers, it's mostly about showing them their options, right? And showing them that you are not the only option for them, but this is why I am the best option for you, right? Also letting them kind of know what the culture is like here, kind of you become friends, help them out in things, refer them to other things that they may need. So some, for instance, furniture, maybe refer them to a furniture shop that they can check out some stuff to furnish their home. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you just, it's more about giving rather than taking. So if people see that
Well,
you're trying to help them more so than just get them as a customer, that helps.
so the next step in the process is once they like the value you're showing them, and there comes a point where a decision needs to be made. I think most new people struggle with collecting decisions,
Yeah.
closing, moving that process along. What are some techniques or tips that you use when you're collecting a decision?
So for people I don't know that well, it's more about leading them to the next step. So for those people, I'll more say, okay, how would you like to proceed? I've got time available at this time and this time, so we can sign you up then. So I assume that they're going to sign up with me, right? And I'll give them choices as to when they'll sign up, much like how we do for doing a PBZ or a PBR, right? We give them two choices as to when we'd like them to see the information, and then they choose which one fits for them. Or they tell you, oh, actually, I can't make either of those, but this time will work.
So when you ask somebody to become your customer and you're leading them down that decision, one of the things on that path or objections and their bumps in the road, like I need more information, I got to talk to my spouse, I'm busy at the moment, common objections like that.
Mhm.
How often do you have somebody and you're like, do you want to be my customer, and they're like, yep, and it goes, you sign them up on the spot? And then how often when you get those objections does that happen, and how do you handle it?
So the objections, like needing to talk to my spouse or just give me a little bit of time to think about it, anything like that, I ask them as to when I can follow up with them. So I'll say, okay, that sounds good. Totally makes sense. Everybody needs to mull over the information. You already know that I've got the best rate out there. However, it makes sense that you need to look into things a little bit further. So I'll either give them the information for themselves and I'll tell them, okay, how about I follow up? Like if it was Tuesday, like today is, I'll say, how about I follow up with you on Thursday?
That's
And then
awesome. Just
usually
being
they're like, okay,
decisive and picking a time.
yeah.
So let's talk about follow up because you'd mentioned, and that's something that you do a fantastic training on, which we got to get a recording of as well.
Okay.
But follow up is the reason why you've got a lot of personal customers, the reason why your team is growing. It's a vital skill set in the business.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start this off with asking you what your preference is when you have a lot of people to follow up with and there's a big list. Do you keep that list and keep all those dates and times on paper, digitally? What kind of person are you? It seems everybody's got a okay,
All about my cell phone. I put it all in my calendar in there, set reminders, and it reminds me.
awesome. Okay. So now
Yeah.
that being said, when those reminders come in, uh, how do you initiate a follow up conversation? What kind of language does that? What kind of language do you use? How does that sound when you're having a follow up conversation with somebody?
So if it's a phone call or text, first thing I'll say is, "Hey, it's Lisa, just following up like I said I would." So that way they're reminded that they asked me to follow up, even if I kind of led them to that asking of it, but they're reminded of it. And then they're like, oh, okay, right. So I should respond back. So I find that that tends to help a lot more. You definitely have people who don't necessarily respond, and that's fine. But then again, I'll follow up again and I'll say, hey, just checking in. Did you get the chance to look at the information I gave you? Or did you get the chance to speak with your wife or whatever, right?
What do
And
you
just
feel following up does? I think, and not only just following up once, but just being consistent with that. What do you think that does for the customer? And then what do you think it does for the IBO when they become good at it?
well, I think you have more success when you're following up because a lot of times people aren't thinking about whatever it is that they spoke to you about. Like, they're like, yeah, sure, follow up with me. Yes, I need to check out this information, but they're really not going to because it's life happens. They have other things going on. It's just they don't want to feel pressured into making a decision. Right. So the follow up, especially if you're doing like a soft follow up, as I like to call it, um, they don't end up feeling pressured. They're kind of brought along through the system, and they feel like if you actually care, which you do, and as long as you're showing that you care, they can sense that. People can sense whether you care or whether you're just trying to get them in, right? So I think that's the main thing. Sometimes you'll have people that you're following up with where life happens and they've gotten sick at the time when you're supposed to follow up. So that's fine. You say, okay, sorry to hear that you're sick right now. You just know that you just need to keep following up. They may not join exactly when, they may not become your customer exactly when you had it planned for, but they will eventually become your customer. And even if they don't, it's okay. You'll keep following up with them, especially if it's someone you've created a relationship with now. And eventually they will become your customer or maybe even your business partner instead.
Yeah, it's exciting when you have waves of enrollment because of consistent follow up and you get 5 or 10 in a week or 10 or 20 in a week, or like
Yeah.
you 88, open line RC points in 1 month. So it's exciting when stuff like that happens.